Hi guys, I'm here. This is Natasha with the Glow Up Method. I am so excited to talk to you guys today about a concept that popped in my head, and it was a reminiscent of where my journey began. So for those of you who don't know who I am a mom of four. I have had a lot of kids that have had major medical illnesses, which have included heart surgery, brain surgery, tumors, life-threatening allergies, literally seeing them die and come back. I've also taken care of extended family that have had cancer, heart attacks, strokes. So I have seen a lot of crazy, and those are like just the big things. Like there's always all those middle broken arms, broken elbows, broken ankles. Like there are a million of those, like, oh, that just a broken ankle. Okay, we're good. It's going to be about 6 weeks here and 2 weeks off. And then you're back at it, so, I've been through a lot, and, I've supported a lot of people. I've advocated for a lot of people. By doing all that, I understood that my job was to caregive and caregive others. The caregiving to myself was kind of lost. And what happened was I had ballooned into 300 pounds. And a lot of it was by choice, because I was like, listen, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, like I don't do any of these other like things. I'm not a shopaholic. Like I like my food. I'm going to eat my food. Like if it means I live 5 less years of my life, well, I'd rather be in pleasure than not. And so this was kind of my mentality then. And I also thought like it was my armor. Like if you didn't want to know me, you wouldn't know me, because, if you're going to just judge this book by its cover, well, then it's your loss. And I'd rather know that than have people who were only with me for the wrong reasons. So I had a plethora of excuses, maybe not even excuses, reasons, whatever you want to call it. And I had made the choices that had resulted in me becoming 300 pounds. Again, I had this amazing epiphany, and it came from a place of pain. It came from a place of hurt. Like I wasn't enjoying my life. Felt like I was a shell of a human. I felt like my entire existence was just based on taking care of other people. I felt like my opinion didn't matter. So as a result, I stopped creating my own opinion, right? Like I just shoved everything down. I don't have an opinion. I don't have dreams, because I can't be let down if I don't, voice them and even voice them to myself. I just simply didn't know. And so I finally had reached a breaking point, and I was like, I cannot live this life anymore. I just cannot do this like for perpetuity. Like this cannot be it. Like I deserve more. Like I want to be happy. Like I don't know what my purpose is, and I don't know what my dreams are, but I at least deserve to kind of get the opportunity to explore them. Like it can't just all be about like I'm a good mom and I'm a good caretaker and I'm responsible and I take care of everybody else, and even at the detriment of myself, and I have no idea what self-care is, and I think it's selfish to do anything for myself. I can't, go to a restaurant, because then that money could have been spent on the family. I can't, get a pedicure because that money could have been spent on the kids. Like I just had put all these rules on myself that I was really enforcing for no good reason. And it had put me in a place where I was very, very low. I was always a happy person in general, like a positive person, and things can come at me. And I had a ton of grit and a ton of resilience, and I remained positive, and optimistic. I didn't let any of these things define me, like I still was me, but I was like, I was losing like hope. I was losing life. Like I just didn't get it. So finally, like, and again, I accredit the pandemic because it gave me time. When you're in the day-to-day grind of just being on that hamster wheel, you're so numb, right? Like you're so distracted. Like there isn't time to think about the fact that I'm so miserable in my life. Like there isn't time to think about that this relationship isn't fulfilling me. Like you just think everybody else's isn't, right? Like you don't have time when you're numbing on Facebook, on, social media, on Google, on Netflix, on, on Bravo, watching the Housewives of Beverly Hills quarrel, like I could see things I wanted and alternative ways of living, but it just didn't seem like it was a real possibility. Until one day during the pandemic, I had time, right? I had this time, and, my kids were all taken care of because they were all in home. Like my most exciting things to do was to, bundle up and head to the grocery store and look like an absolute lunatic in gloves and hoods and glasses and masks and, Purelling all those things just to come home and Purell everything again. And, that was my pleasure at some point, but then I had this time because they were in class or they were in work. I was also working, but my work was only part-time. And so, when it got done, I was doing other things for the business and, I was doing all these other things, but I was like, I had time and I just used that time to my benefit. And I really started doing the hard work, like the things that I could no longer distract myself from, or, like I wasn't driving in a car at that time. Like I wasn't just picking up kids. I wasn't scheduling things. I wasn't just going to a soccer game or a cheer competition. It was really this opportunity to kind of look inside. And once I started looking inside, I kind of felt really sad. Like I was like, wow, I'm looking in the mirror now and I see somebody like, that's not who I think I am. Like, that isn't who I want to be. Like, this isn't the representation of who I am. Like, I'm this funny and fun and caring and generous and silly person. But what's reflected back at me is a very sad, angry, hurting woman. And I'm not okay with just being like, okay, if you don't know, you don't know. But now I knew, I could see it. And it was so clear. And I finally, I started really putting myself in a position where I was like, I really do believe in this. Like, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so, yeah, I'm with my family and the kids, and they're talking about their own interests and their own things, and they're having their own lives and adapting in their own ways. And I kind of was alone. Like, my husband wasn't really talking to me at that time at all. I, would be like, hey, would you like to do this with me? Want to play a card game? No, no, boring. So I was very alone. I felt very isolated. And so I created this environment where I started listening to a lot more. Like, I really started to lean into the personal development books. I started really leaning into these type of YouTubes. I created an entire, it's not my channel or whatever. So I created a whole profile that was just specifically that. And it just just hearing these things in repetition and allowed me to finally see and have a breakthrough to be like, no, wait, it is possible. So there are all these hundreds of people. They're saying very similar things. And these are the results. If this is the result for them, why couldn't it be for me? I mean, we are all just literally people. We are all just human. What's the difference between them and I? Is they believed and I didn't. And, it's they did and I wasn't, they were the doers. I was a don'ter. And, I just was came to the realization that if I did nothing at all, this trajectory would stay. Actually, I was gaining weight every year, and I foresaw myself being this very sickly, overweight grandma, in one of those little rascal rider. I don't know what they're called. I call them a rascal rider, right? Like a electric wheelchair, whatever, people mover thing. And, just being, that's not the grandma I wanted to show up as. I want to be the fun grandma that is able to travel with my kid, do the things that my grandma was able to do, take them places, go to the park with them, get on the ground and play the blocks and the dolls with them. That was what I had wanted. And so, I had to ask myself, if I continue on this trajectory, if I continue this life, is that possible? Maybe, but maybe not. And so I just had this decision that what if I make a change? Like, I believed I could. Like, could I? And you're sitting there, you're at 300 pounds, right? That scale's looking back at you and it's got a 3 and a 0 and a 0. You got some big decisions to make, right? Like, I'm tall-ish woman. I'm not like extremely tall. I mean, on average, I'm probably taller than average, but I'm not like, hey, I can carry 3, like, although actually one time I did go to the doctors when they thought they had to do a lymph node, whatever, removal. They were concerned I had this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so I do remember like sitting there and the one doctor was like, oh, like, looked at the weight or whatever. And he was like, you carry it very well. And it wasn't like meant to be an insult or anything. Like, I took it as like, oh, actually at that time I took it as a compliment. I was like, oh, good. I got room to, like, he didn't even know I weighed this much. And I'm like, good. Then nobody else really does. Like, cause he would know. Right. So, said it in the most, again, I take it as the most complimentary way. I didn't take anything to it. Actually, like I said, I took it like, hey, thank you. Like today was a good day. Like a little extra in my, surgery cap over here, felt a little extra flair on there. And, I just had to come to this realization that where I was heading was not where I wanted to be. And I had to make some tough choices, right? Like, I didn't know where to start. I am frugal. I didn't really necessarily, like, I believed change was possible, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to stick with it. Like, there were a few times, a few different people had made the recommendation that I do like a vlog of it. If I, do this like blog and all this stuff. And, the only thing that held me back from doing it was me. Like, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Like, again, it took me a long time to get rid of the big girl clothes that I didn't fit in because I wasn't confident that I was going to be able to maintain my progress. And it took a long time, and I wouldn't get rid of it until I did, because again, I'm frugal. I don't want to have to rebuy all these clothes because it's hard to buy. Like I've talked in previous episodes, it's really hard to find clothes that are cute when you're a bigger size. And some things are great on the mannequin or on somebody else, but everybody's body is different. Some people have like more hourglass, some people have more pear, apple, all those different body types. And you make one shirt, like they need to have like not a size like necessarily, only just like, here's where the hourglass girl should shop, here's where the pear girl should watch, like here's their clothes, like out there clothing designers, like let's do that, because two bodies aren't the same, like like they're not. But even just go with the body types, because there are things that I can rock, but there are things I cannot rock, and something that cinches in my waist, fabulous, looks great on me. But something that clings to my belly and my hips, not so good, like, so anyways, like, and I'm taller, right? So like, I had big boobs, and the shirt, is ending up here and your belly is hanging out. I'm like, how cute is that? Not, that wasn't the vibe I was going for. So I say all that to say, you have to make some difficult choices, right? And so the first choice was to believe I was possible. And the minute I could believe in myself, like, even if it was just like, even if there was still doubt, but the fact that like it was possible, I needed to believe that my life could change. I could change, because, for so many years I had it embedded in my mind, and perhaps you do too, that like people don't change, nobody changes. So like I would hear that in my head, like, people don't change. Like, you are just an overweight B-word, like that's it. Like, that's what you are. I was thinking about the worst in my opinion at that time, like things about me, like my worst days or whatever. That's all I am. And I can't change, because they say people don't change. But I'm over here saying, wait a minute, like, that's not true. Like, that isn't true at all. Like, people can change. The difference is whoever the people is, has to want to change, has to believe they can change, is willing to put in the effort and the action to change. That is the secret, right? Like, you can't sit here and say people don't change and then try to go on a diet and like you're just like, oh, why? What's the point? I'm not going to change. Like, you have to believe it's possible, because that's what motivates you. That's what excites you. That gives you hope that it is possible. So once I believed that that change was possible for myself, and I was doing it for myself, I wasn't doing it to get on go look good on a vacation. I wasn't doing it to get a job. I wasn't doing it to get somebody else's approval. I was doing it for me. So I knew my why. I knew what was driving me. Again, my why for me, so that I can enjoy my grandchildren, so that I can walk up the stairs and not be out of breath. This was for me, for nobody else. It wasn't for my kids. It wasn't for Chris. It wasn't for some other person. It wasn't for anything. It was me. And I think that that's what makes the difference too, is like when you understand that this is for you, these changes are for you and for you only. Anything else is a cherry on top. Like if somebody else accepts it and is grateful for your changes, that's a cherry on top. Because I'm here to tell you that there are going to be people that hit this resistance because they weren't asking for change. They didn't want change. They didn't need change. They were completely content with the way their life was. And you over here coming along and making these changes and making your life better, and they don't like it because in some weird way, we created this dynamic where, you know, they expect you to be one way and now suddenly you're not. And they had their needs met and they had their expectations, and now they're all changing, and they didn't ask for the change. They didn't want the change. They're not believing in the change. So they're like resistant to it. But don't let that deter you. Just keep going. This is your race. This is your life. Run it like you want. You know, I think about sometimes that story where they talk about, you know, what is it? The hare and the turtle, where the rabbit, you know, gets out the gate and he's running super fast and then he burns out, right? Like he's running, he stops, he burns out. He's now crawling past the finish line. And we're all taught that that's the wrong way, right? The slow and steady turtle over here, he is doing it the right way, or she or they or them, whatever, is doing it the right way. But is it? Like, who is determining, is this race, which is this life we're living, all about crossing the finish line and who does it first? No, it's about finishing. It's about getting up and going. It's having the courage to even go and race. Like, it is having the courage. So you run your race. If you coming out hot from the jump and understand that in the end, you might fade out. You might run out of gas. You might have to crawl over the finish line. That's fine. If you start slow and then you want to ramp it up and then, you know, your race, nobody gets to judge or tell you you're racing your race wrong because it's yours. It's not a comparison. It's you living your life. And so if you could commit to me and say, hey, yes, I believe I can change. Like I believe this. And you may not be there today because there are days, like it took me a long time before I believed in myself and believed that change was possible in somebody. So if you're not there today, no worries. Like it just planting the seed and letting it run around in your brain, it may happen for you, you know, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, next month, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't believe in it, you don't believe in it. That's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So if you're committed, you want change, you're like in any aspect of your life, anything, it could be health, it could be wealth, it could be, you know, friends, it could be anything. Just commit to saying, I believe in that. Okay, great. That's step one. And then we get confused, right? Like this is where the next part came. It was like, okay, fine. Yeah, I believe I can change. But then the panic sets in because you're just like, well, how, what, where, when, why, all these things. And you just don't have all the answers. You don't have the clarity. Hey, you just finally figured out like you can change. You finally had the courage to believe in yourself that you would be able to change. Now I'm going to put more expectations to like burn myself out and be like, I can't do anything. I'm scared, you know? No, like over here, now what we're going to do is, even if you don't have the clarity to know how you want your life to look, if you don't have the perfect vision board, if you don't have the perfect Pinterest or whatever these, you know, pinned up boards, It's okay. Like, it's better than okay, because you are flexible, you are adaptable, you are open to this process. Because let me tell you, it is a process, it is a journey. There are lessons all the time. If you're out there and open-minded to see them, you are going to have such a richer experience learning here. So if you're willing, now, number one, you believe. Number two, here's the next thing. You have to be committed to taking small, teeny tiny micro actions every day. Consistency here is the key. You want to know why? Is because we're not going to always want to. Like, there are going to be days where you're like, I don't want to do this. Like, but you do it anyways, and you're building resistance. You are telling all that doubt in your brain, all the excuses and all this stuff, like, I don't want to, but I'm going to anyways. And we're starting with micro, teeny, tiny, small tasks because we are building confidence in ourselves and saying, oh, wait, we can. It is giving us evidence and proof that everything we're thinking, all these theories in our mind, are actually possible. You are possible. It is possible to do all these things. So if you commit to making these small, teeny, and now you're like, well, what, how, where, when, why? Again, like, we don't have this process in place. So that's why I came up with this. We are going to start with the 1 block walk. Okay, Natasha, 1 block, what is that going to do? Am I going to suddenly lose weight? Am I going to all of a sudden have this mental epiphany and this No, you're not. Most likely, maybe. I don't know. I'm not here to judge or tell you your thing. But by consistently committing to a 1 block walk every day, if we're just starting today, like today, no more 1 day, right? We're going to go back to that. No more 1 day. Today is day 1 of the 1 block walk. And you could do it anytime you want. This is the flexibility. Like, I'm all about flexibility and what works for your life and integrating these things into your life, because my life isn't like everybody else's. Like, I'm very clear, and I tell people, I communicate, I intermittent fast. The hours in which I choose to intermittent fast would look vastly different if I was a single woman, but I am not. I am still technically married, and I have 4 children who have lives of their own and practices. And I happen to value time spent around the table with my family. Some of the best moments and memories are created around the table. I love food. I love talking. It is the combination of 2 beautiful things. And so for me, I am willing to be adaptable and accommodate their schedules. Now, again, like I said, if I was a single woman with no kids, my timing of my window, my eating period would look very different. So right now for me, my eating period is from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's a big amount of time. I can eat anything I want within that time. That's the only rule for me. So I am not going to place any rules. So if you decide you want a 1 day intermittent fast, whatever, we'll get into that, talk about that more later in another day. This is not what this is about, but this is about saying, find what works for you for whatever reason that works for you. You have to understand you're going to make some compromises. Like for me, I made a compromise in my time and said, okay, I'm not doing 11 to 7 like I probably would enjoy, but I value the time with my family so much that I would rather take that little bit of a compromise and sacrifice and just know that, hey, every dinner needs to be done by 9 p.m. That's not that hard of an ask, but sometimes they practices it late or whatever and say, you adapt, and some days I don't eat with them. It's not like a hard set in stone kind of thing. Sometimes I'm at the gym and I come home and I'm not hungry anymore. I've eaten a bigger meal prior to the gym. So anyways, having that flexibility and that openness to understand what works for you. So that may mean you get up early in the morning and you take a 1 block walk. That may mean you walk an extra block before you get in your car before you go to work. That may mean when you come home from work, you take a walk before you get in the house. It could be you do it at your lunch break. It could be you do it while your kids are at practice. Listen, I'm not here to give you all the ideas. You get the gist here. You know what your schedule is like better than anybody else. So you find that 1 block walk amount of time. Can you commit to that? It's just a few minutes. I don't know how big your block is, and I don't know where you live or what the weather conditions are, but make it happen. It's 1 block. And what you do is you're building that resistance, because some days you're going to be like, yeah, I'm excited to go for this 1 block. And there's going to be days that you're like, I would rather eat dirt than take a 1 block walk today. and you get up and do it anyways. And when you do that, you're building this muscle. You're building a muscle in you that says, yes, I can. And when all those, you're reprogramming yourself. This is what you're doing here, is you're reprogramming yourself to create the life you love, the life you deserve to live. And so we're so conditioned to do everything with our right hand. We get up, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we, go to work, we come home, we take off our shoes, we sit down, we eat dinner, we watch Netflix, we take a shower, we go to bed, rinse, repeat. And so what we're doing here is we've been using, and I will always use the analogy because I'm right-handed, of using our default settings, our default hand. So I'm using my right hand, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. And now Mr. over here, a left hand, is coming in to disturb the process, right? And the right hand, it knows what it's doing. Like, it doesn't even have to think. It knows the alphabet. It looks good. Like, everything is set in stone, and it'll tell you 55 reasons why we should not be using the left hand when we're trying to use the left hand, because it's been king of the kingdom for a long time. It likes to be in control. It knows what's going to happen. It's efficient, all that. But now we're over here trying to use our left hand. We're putting in new habits, and there's going to be resistance. There's going to be a lot of resistance, external resistance. There could be snow. There could be, weather conditions. There could be internal, right? Like, I don't want to. I'd rather eat dirt than go for a 1-block walk. Like, no, get up and do your 1-block walk. And so when you take that 1-block walk, like, use that time, how it is for you. Like, if that time for you is to listen to a song, is it to listen to the birds, is it to do nothing, whatever, you define that, because you're creating your own life. You're the artist here. This is your new life. You have an empty blank canvas, and you can do whatever you want with it. And so once we get that 1-block walk going, momentum builds. Once we get that courage and that consistency, we get the confidence to know, wait a minute, I can do this. And suddenly you find yourself most days looking forward to it. You're frustrated if you can't get to it. And, you got to work with your schedule and see, where does it work? Where is it best for me? It's too stressful after school? We got this going on, whatever it is. You can adapt it to you. Be flexible. Be willing to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone, because that is the secret to finding growth. That is the place where we grow up and glow up. There is the secret. And once you are like, hey, I don't want to just do a 1-block walk anymore. I'm ready to grow. And I'm not going to tell you it's in a week. I'm not going to tell you it's a day. You define that. Again, nobody defined for me when it was time to go from 1-block walk up to up the hill walk.